We're on.
Again, we'll start this session with meditation, and of course we're looking at Mahamudra practice, and here in the context of Sutra Mahamudra, the Vipassana practice is to realise the ultimate nature of the mind. And so I'd like to go back to that very direct approach that we looked at yesterday, looking for the mind. So let's do a Vipassana practice looking for mind, looking for awareness. As always, we begin by preparing the body, setting the body into a state of relaxation, stillness, and vigilance. Allowing the entire body to become completely relaxed, completely at ease. Allowing the breathing to settle into its natural rhythm. Not trying to control or regulate the breath in any way. Simply allowing it to flow naturally and effortlessly. And setting the mind in a state of ease and relaxation. Allowing it to come to rest in the present moment. And simply becoming aware of the rhythm of the breath. allowing the eyes to be at least partially open, resting your gaze in the space in front of you, keeping the eyes soft and relaxed. And now simply release all appearances and allow the mind to come to rest. Resting in awareness itself. Simply knowing that you're aware. If you get caught up in any agitation, tension or distraction, lower your gaze, release awareness into space, releasing all appearances and relaxing completely. Resting in awareness. Where is awareness? Don't try to intellectually answer this. Just look. is awareness nowhere? Because in fact awareness is everywhere. Is awareness located in physical space? Or is physical space within awareness? And then release all investigation and allow the mind to come to rest. Resting in that open, spacious stillness of awareness. So this Mahamudra practice is often referred to as nature of the mind practice. And when we talk about nature of mind, we can talk about that in sort of two ways. First, we can talk about the conventional nature of the mind. And the conventional nature of the mind is, as we defined mind yesterday, is that the mind is clear and knowing, or has clarity and awareness. And this conventional nature of the mind we come to realise through shamatha practice. That we come to more clearly see and experience the clarity and the knowing quality of the mind. But of course here when we talk about nature of the mind, we are generally talking more about the ultimate nature of the mind. Meaning, how does the mind exist? And of course, the ultimate nature of the mind is emptiness. The mind does not exist independently, does not exist inherently from its own side. And this is, of course, realised through vipassana practice. Now, when we practice shamatha, regardless of whether we're using the breath, the mind, or whatever object, as we go deeper into the practice, there are three qualities of mind that become more and more manifest. The first, of course, is clarity, that as we go deep in shamatha practice, the mind becomes more and more clear. The second quality is non-conceptuality, in the sense that here, when we're practicing shamatha, the mind becomes more and more still. And the third quality is bliss or joy, that we start to tap into that bliss or joy that is there at a deeper level. Now, all the meditation texts warn the meditator about these three qualities because they are all very seductive, they're all very pleasant. And what very often happens is when we're practicing shamatha and these qualities start to manifest, we go, ooh, that's very nice, I like that, I want that. And so we end up with a lot of craving and attachment. Because it's very nice when the mind is crystal clear, when it's completely still and quiet and it's very joyful and blissful. And of course, if we develop craving and attachment for these when they start to come up, our whole practice will come to a grinding halt. And then often what people do is they try to recreate those experiences with craving and attachment. And of course, it'll never come back with craving and attachment. And so then people get more and more frustrated. So of course the goal of practice is not to get caught up in these experiences. The goal is to develop single point of concentration. So when these particular experiences arise, then rather than getting caught up in craving and attachment for them, use them as signposts that our practice is going in a good direction. And use those very experiences to go deeper into the practice, because these very experiences provide you with a conditions very good to go further and deeper in the practice. But also, the meditation texts warn meditators particularly about this one. Because it's so easy to misinterpret this experience. Because here, when we're coming to realise emptiness, regardless of whether we're investigating the mind or person or whatever, when we have a realisation of emptiness, that realisation of emptiness is a non-conceptual experience. And so therefore, in shamatha practice, when we have this non-conceptual experience, it's very easy and very common for people to misinterpret that and go, oh, I'm realising nature of reality, I'm realising emptiness. And then, of course, we go completely astray in the practice because we just get stuck here thinking we're realising emptiness, but when all that's happened is our mind has gone still. That's it. We're not realising anything. And even worse than that, if we sort of can get in that state regularly, we may have this idea, well, I've been realising emptiness so much, I think I must be actually nearly enlightened now. In fact, we've not even started yet. We haven't moved one step closer to enlightenment. Because you can only move closer to enlightenment through vipassana practice. Shamatha doesn't progress us one step. All it does is provide us a good basis to take steps. So therefore, and this is so common, people have this sort of experience because it's something very different than they've never experienced before, and they go, wow, I'm realising emptiness. Because the emptiness description seems to match this. Because when we're realising emptiness, what happens? Our mind is crystal clear, it's non-conceptual, it's very blissful. And people go, oh yeah, I had that experience. I realised emptiness. No. So we need to be very careful about this. Very easy to misinterpret. That's why if we have a qualified teacher and we're having some sorts of experiences, we can explain to the teacher and they'll go, no. Your mind has just gone quiet. You're not realising anything. Keep to the practice.
And could you explain again the non-conceptuality? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Here in the context of shamatha, if we're practicing, then now, of course, we're practicing whether we're observing the mind or focusing on the breath. In the background, there's all this blah, 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 non-stop. No? But if we keep watching whatever we're observing, the breath or the mind or whatever, this blah, blah, blah goes quiet, 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 and it stops. And then the mind goes very still. And then, particularly if we're using an object like the mind itself, there's not really a sense of me and the object. Because now we have a very strong sense, me, and then thoughts, images, distractions. There's a very strong dualistic sense. But when the mind goes quiet, and if we're observing the mind, there's not really a strong sense. I mean, the mind has gone quiet, but there's not very strong sense of some separate object. So that's the non-conceptuality. And then in the descriptions of emptiness, they say experience of emptiness is a non-conceptual experience. People are, oh, that's what I'm having now. I'm realising emptiness. No. So we need to be careful about that. And that's so common. Okay, so let's go back to the text now. So at the bottom of page 11, conclusion. So remember there was the, if we go right back at the beginning of the text, there was preliminaries, actual practice, conclusion. So preliminaries, of course, was the foundation practices. The actual practice here, of course, we're talking Sutra Mahamudra. The actual practice was shamatha vipassana. So that's actual practice. Now we're coming to conclusion. And conclusion is two parts. Conclusion means what to do at the end of the meditation and what to do in between meditations. So what to do at the end of the meditation is down the bottom here of page 11. It says, dedicate whatever virtue that has arisen from having meditated on Mahamudra together with your ocean-like collection of past, present and future virtue towards unsurpassable great enlightenment. So remember, at the beginning, the door of entry into Mahamudra practice was refuge and bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is the motivation that we should try to cultivate as a basis for this practice. So then, often we see in the texts, with respect to meditation, it says there are two things which are important. What we do at the beginning and what we do at the end. So the beginning here, of course, motivation of bodhicitta, and at the end, dedicate. So then we dedicate towards that goal, because bodhicitta is the aspiration for enlightenment. So we then dedicate everything we've done towards that goal, to reinforce that direction towards enlightenment. So that's the bottom of page 11. And then we go over to page 12, and this is now talking about what to do between meditation sessions. Because every practice has two parts, meditation and what we do between meditation sessions. If we want any practice to progress, we need to pay attention to both. Because if we diligently meditate, but then in between meditation sessions we don't do anything to support that and further it, we won't get very far. So what are we supposed to do here for our Vipassana practice of emptiness between sessions? So let's have a look. It says, up the top of page 12, having familiarised yourself in that way in meditative equipoise, then during post-meditation, realise well, by investigating with subtle discernment, the way in which any appearances that dawn as the objects of the six collections of consciousness are appearing. So we are to investigate how things are appearing to our mind. Here it talks about the six collections of consciousness. This is one way of talking about the mind. And we can talk about the six consciousnesses. And this presentation is from the perspective of the various things that we can perceive with the mind. So with the mind, we can perceive visual objects, sounds, smell, taste, tactile. So they are the five sense objects. So since we can perceive these five sense objects, we can talk about five sense consciousnesses. But also with the mind, we can perceive mental objects, such as thoughts, emotions, memories, mental images. And so therefore we can talk about mental consciousness.